Dearly beloved, we are gathered here to celebrate the darkness and light. With chiaroscuro, we will marry the black and white, because together they make art better, and that's mighty fine thing. Oh, hello. I hope I didn't frighten you. We were just studying for our officiant's license. What brings you here tonight? Professor Paul. Oh my. Oh, I have some grave news. You see, the professor had a bit of an accident. How do I put this? Well, Pondering Paul happened to manifest himself a bit too close to the professor, and the professor was sucked into a
questionable realm.
All that was left of him was me. I'm all that's left. Allow me to introduce myself. I am
Host Paul.
I'm what happens after Paul. I'm post Paul. It seemed like a very fitting name when I thought about it the first time. It was the only thing I could think of with the P word. What beckons you here tonight? Painting. You happen to be in luck. You see, not only am I a worshipper of the night, but a bit of an aficionado when it comes to value. If you'll have me, I would be delighted to teach your lesson tonight. Shall we get started?
Can wash the blues away by painting with Host Paul today.
I am so excited to paint with you today. We got my setup here. I have paper, just tore down a quarter sheet of paper. Got a little cloth rag, clean off my brushes. Palette knife, my brushes, get them all in a cup there. 2 little cups of water, one to put in the paint, one to clean my brushes. And then we got the golden retarder. This is gonna keep our paint nice and wet for a long time. Then just a little squirt bottle of holy water. No, that would burn. Just regular water. And we're gonna start out with number 10, Filbert. Love that brush name, Filbert. And we're gonna just get a little water on it. This helps to keep too much paint getting up in the heel of the brush. And we're gonna start with our 2 paints, titanium white and ivory black. Titanium white, squirt out just a little bit on the palette there. And I'm going to add in a little of the golden retarder. Show you how that mixes in. Always keep your tools very clean. Anytime you're mixing, good to keep them clean. I'm going to start out clean and then get real messy later. Just show you how things can be done. So squirting in just a little droppy, little drop of the golden retarder. And when you mix this with your palette knife, it's good to use the bottom for squishing it around squish it flat, squish it down, and then use the edge of your palette knife to scrape it up, and then dump it out in a little blob, and then squish it around some more. This is going to make sure you get all that medium nice and spread through. Real good. Once the paint appears to be an even consistency with the medium spread evenly throughout, you're ready to get started. Tonight we're going to be making ourselves a grayscale, or as I like to call it, a value scale. Because I love value. Value is essentially the lights and the darks and everything in between, and how they compare to each other. And it's all relative. If you put something light next to something dark, it'll make the dark look darker and the light look lighter. I'm adding in a little bit of water. This will make my paint a little more fluid and a little more translucent so that you can kind of see through it a bit. And it just allows for easier application. It gives it more of a watercolor consistency. You don't have to do this, just try it out, see how it feels. If you do it this way, you're going to have to do multiple coats, as you'll see once we start getting darker. As we get darker, you'll see that the white of the paper will still show through. And when you want to get dark, very dark, you got to do many coats. But if you don't thin your paint out, then you're going to have more pigment and less medium, which means your paint will be less translucent. So just wiping off my brush there to get it clean. I prefer using a rag. Old t-shirt will do. It makes it just easier to clean than using a paper towel, but whatever works best for you. I'm gonna be mixing up some black, but as I do this, I want to talk about my grayscale or value scale that I have marked down. It's just a 9-step, 9 rectangles going from white all the way to black, with the middle being middle gray. I'm just starting with 9 because that's a good number. I like the number 9. Mixing up the black paint here, as you can see, same way as with the white. I find that this black paint is much more translucent than other black paints, so it's gonna go on pretty thin regardless of how much medium you put in. So just be aware. If you get a different brand that is a bit higher quality, you won't have as much translucency because there will be more pigment in the paint. So as you can see, I'm just marking down the furthest dark on my value scale. This will be my black, and you can see how it's just looking kind of like watercolor there. And even if I didn't thin it out, it would still be a little bit see-through. Now you can mix the paint with your palette knife or your paintbrush. If you're using your palette knife, you'll typically waste less paint. If you mix with a paintbrush, a lot of times you're going to get a lot of extra paint up inside the bristles that you'll then wipe off or wash out. So now that we have our white down and our black down, at least one coat, we need to make up our middle gray, which should technically just be 1 part white mixed with equal amount black to get middle gray. Obviously, you can't always measure perfectly, so you gotta mess around till you find something that looks halfway between black and white. Mix these two together, and now you'll see this is important when you want to mix it thoroughly to get all the little smudgies, all the different values of white and black mixed together. Alright, I'm gonna move it into high gear here. Don't want to keep you too long. So I'm trying to get to my middle gray, mixing that together. Once my black first layer is dry, put down a little bit more. You can see it gets darker there. Now, I'm using a very small amount of space on my palette, which means my black and my white are very close to each other. I would not recommend this, as you can end up getting them too muddy, and the only one who likes things muddy are pigs and worms. So I got a good middle gray here, put that down. One thing that can help you find your values is if you have a scale that you're looking at, or something that you're trying to match. If you squint your eyes and hold the color up next to one another, when your eyes go blurry, if the values are the same, they should kind of disappear together and the edges will go away. So that's one way. If you see my palette is about a middle gray, and if I squint my eyes, that middle gray just kind of fades into the palette. Now I want to mix a light middle gray, which is going to be halfway between my middle gray and my white. So just like before, 1 part white, but this time 1 part middle gray. So if you mix up a little extra as you're doing this, this will give you the tools to continue for your next gradients. Essentially, halfway between two should be the mix of 1 part of one and 1 part of the other. So to get halfway between black and middle gray, you would mix 1 part black and 1 part middle gray. To get 1 step in between each of those, the same thing. And we'll speed things up. And I am really working a sweat up now as I work so fast. So this next step that I'm going to make, I'll actually make it incorrectly. So if you look, it is just a bit too close in value to the gray and not close enough to the white. But I'll show you a dry brush technique. You just take a nice clean dry brush, and as you brush the wet paint from the gray into the white, it will smoothly blend in and give you an almost unnoticeable blend where there's no fine lines. This is great for molding smooth things, as we'll see later on. Looks great. Great job. And we'll speed things up again. When using a dry brush technique, the main thing is to keep the brush clean and dry. So after you do a blend, it's good to wipe off any excess paint, or even wash it, wipe it off Rub it against your hands until it's all the way dry before blending together. This will help keep that very nice kind of smoky, smooth blend. I'm going to just finish up this side here and that'll do it. The dark half is exactly the same as the light, just reversed. So I'll use my powers to jump into the future, show you, and it's done. I even threw in another 5-point value scale. Maybe try the 5 first. When you get the hang of that, move on to the 9. And then any extra leftover paint, just mix it together and make a square. Just a nice square. That's going to be used for our next little lesson in part 2. So get to it, and most importantly, have fun doing it.
The bats in here drive me crazy. They just won't stop. They just keep coming back. I had a few for breakfast. That's about all there is to eat around here.